Amanda woke up with a strange sensation on her face. The skin around her nose felt tight and swollen, as if someone had stuffed cotton underneath it and she couldn't pull it out. When she lightly touched the bridge of her nose, a sharp sting, like a needle, shot through her, forcing her to jerk back. Then she looked in the mirror. A deep red stain was spreading from the base of her nostrils. Along the edges, a bluish-purple shade began to appear, bleeding outward like ink soaking into paper. In a few spots, the skin was starting to blister, stretched tight and glossy, as if the surface were about to split open. Amanda Parker stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, lit by the pale flickering bulb overhead. The mirror was old, slightly rusted around the edges, mounted above a sink that dripped once every 3 seconds. She leaned closer, squinting at the small crease forming between her brows, the faint acne scars on her cheeks, the flat, broad bridge of her nose that she had inherited from her father's side. She tilted her head slightly and murmured to herself, "Not terrible, but definitely not great." Behind her, the sound of the washing machine rumbled in the next room of her small Bakersfield apartment. Her mother was sleeping on the couch, an oxygen tank softly hissing beside her. It was a quiet Sunday evening, and the stillness felt heavier than usual. Amanda had always been the capable one. She had taken over household finances after her father passed when she was 16. She finished college with a degree in business administration, not from a top school but respectable enough. She worked her way through odd jobs, finally landing an admin position at a logistics company downtown. She was punctual, professional, polite, everything her supervisors liked on paper, but no one ever promoted her. Her coworkers, many of whom were younger, less experienced, and, let's just say it, prettier, had all moved on to better roles. She had trained 3 of her previous temporary interns, only to see them promoted to client-facing positions. Amanda stayed in the back office, answering calls, managing schedules, running reports. Invisible but essential, like the plumbing. She thought about that as she sipped lukewarm tea from a chipped mug and scrolled through job listings on her cracked phone screen. A notification buzzed. Hiring, executive assistant to CEO, Miller & Kane Real Estate Group, downtown LA. Her eyes widened. Miller & Kane. That was a prestigious firm, known for luxury properties and a charismatic CEO who sometimes appeared on local news segments. She clicked into the posting. The description matched her skill set perfectly. 5 years of administrative experience? Check. Familiarity with CRM tools and calendar management? Check. Ability to handle high-pressure environments? Triple check. But then she saw it. Polished presence and professional appearance preferred. Candidate will represent the company in executive meetings and high-profile client interactions. Amanda's heart sank a little. She scrolled through the firm's LinkedIn page. Every assistant, every receptionist in the office photos had the same look: slim, stylish, glowing skin, glossy hair. None of them looked like they'd ever shopped at Ross or worked night shifts at a call center job. Till she thought, I have to try.
God. And then the look
The
on
next
her
day,
face,
she submitted
it
her
was
resume
priceless.
and a carefully written cover letter. She even updated her headshot, took 20 selfies by the window to get one that didn't emphasize her nose. She wore a white blouse with a high collar to elongate her neck, added a touch of red lipstick, and smiled gently, not too wide. 3 days later, she received a response. Brr. He was invited for an in-person interview. Manda stood in front of her closet the night before, trying to piece together something professional but flattering. She settled on a tailored navy blazer and black slacks. She blow-dried her hair carefully, applied light foundation, and picked earrings that didn't dangle. The morning of the interview, she arrived 10 minutes early and was ushered into a sleek glass conference room by a young assistant who looked like she belonged on a magazine cover. Amanda sat upright, clutching her leather folder, watching the reflection of herself in the glass walls, smaller, plainer, slightly out of place. Then came Jason Miller, tall, clean-shaven, warm smile, but his eyes didn't linger on her resume when he entered. They glanced up, briefly, then flicked away. Amanda spoke confidently, answering every question with clarity and composure. She even made him chuckle at one point, when she described handling a scheduling disaster involving 3 double-booked meetings and a fire drill. Jason nodded occasionally, but there was something absent in his expression. Not disinterest, not rudeness, just detachment. 20 minutes later, the interview was over. He thanked her politely and said they would be in touch. Amanda walked out trying to feel hopeful, but the pit in her stomach told a different story. That afternoon, as she sat back at her desk at the logistics firm, typing up warehouse invoices, she overheard a coworker chatting behind her. "Did you see the girl who got the assistant job at Miller & Kane last month? Total knockout, like Instagram model level." Amanda kept typing. The email came that evening. "Thank you for your time and interest. While your qualifications are impressive, we have decided to move forward with another candidate whose profile aligns more closely with the brand image we're cultivating." Brand image. Amanda closed the email and sat still. Outside, the sun had set without her noticing. She went to the bathroom and turned on the harsh yellow light again. She stared at herself. The face in the mirror wasn't ugly. It was just forgettable. Safe. It was the face of someone who blended into background noise. She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she opened Instagram. Searched #executive assistant. Scroll. Scroll. Highlighted cheekbones. High-bridged noses. Luminous skin. Women who looked like they walked out of beauty clinics. She opened YouTube. Typed in non-surgical nose job. Videos flooded in. Before and after clips. Painless. Fast. Affordable deep bar. He clicked on an ad that popped up next. Glow Fix Beauty. Confidence in a syringe. Starting at $399. He hesitated. And she clicked message now. BRT. Waiting room at Glow Fix Beauty was smaller than Amanda had imagined. It was tucked between a payday loan office and a vape shop in a fading strip mall on the edge of town. The signage was handwritten in gold paint on the front window. Glow Fix Beauty. Enhance your natural confidence. Below that, in smaller letters, someone had written walk-ins welcome. "Bier Ama." Da hesitated before opening the door. Her hands were slightly damp with sweat. She checked her reflection in the tinted glass one last time, adjusted her hair behind her ears, and stepped inside. A tiny bell jingled above her as the door swung shut. The inside smelled faintly of citrus-scented floor cleaner and vanilla candles. The walls were painted soft pink, and a flickering salt lamp hummed on the front counter. A young woman looked up from her phone. "You must be Amanda," she said brightly. Amanda nodded. "Hi, yes, I messaged about the filler consult. Totally." "Come on in, I'll get you set up," the woman said. "I'm Tammy." Tammy looked to be in her late 20s, with tight ponytailed hair and a smooth, contoured face that gleamed under the overhead lights. Her lips were noticeably full, her cheekbones sharp. She wore pink scrubs and white sneakers with rhinestones along the sides. Amanda followed her down a narrow hallway, passing a room with a treatment chair, a ring light, and shelves stocked with cosmetic bottles that didn't have labels Amanda recognized. Tammy led her into a small consultation room and gestured for her to sit. "So," Tammy said, plopping down across from her with a tablet, "you're interested in nose contouring and a little mid-face volume?" Amanda nodded cautiously. "I think so. I've been told I have kind of a flat profile and under-eye hollowness. But I don't want anything extreme, just fresher." Tammy smiled knowingly. "Totally get it. Everyone wants to look refreshed, not done. I'd say for your face, a little high-definition contour along the nose bridge and a touch of cheek filler to lift. Super subtle. You'll still look like you, just better." She tapped a few notes into the tablet. "The products I use are a Korean hyaluronic acid filler. Super smooth, no downtime, fully reversible if needed. I've done over 400 clients with this brand, and they love it. Honestly, you'll walk out of here ready to take profile pictures." Amanda looked around the room. There was no framed medical certificate on the walls, no diplomas, just a fake orchid and a ring light stand in the corner. "Do you have a medical background?" she asked carefully. Tammy laughed. "Not a doctor, if that's what you're asking. I'm certified in aesthetic enhancement and injectables. Got my training through a clinical program in Orange County. The important thing is technique, and girl, trust me, I've got technique." Amanda nodded, still unsure, her fingers twisted in her lap. Tammy tilted her head. "Look, I get it. You're nervous, but you messaged us because something inside you is ready. You're ready to be seen, to walk into a room and not feel like you're being overlooked." Amanda blinked. That hit harder than she expected. Tammy continued, her voice lower now. "The way the world works, especially in professional spaces, you don't always get a second chance to make a first impression. And sometimes your face gets you the seat at the table before your resume does. Amanda glanced at the mirror on the side wall. Her reflection stared back, soft features, tired eyes, a face that no one remembered. A face that blended into every office she'd ever worked in. Tammy tapped her stylus against the tablet. "We're running a new client special. $449 for a custom package. Nose, mid-face, and smile lines. Done in under an hour. No surgery, no scars. You'll be back at work tomorrow, and I swear people will treat you different. They just do." Amanda hesitated. "Is it permanent?" "It fades gradually," Tammy replied. "Usually 6 to 9 months. But that's a good thing. It lets you adjust, and if for some reason you hate it, which I doubt, you can dissolve it." Amanda took a deep breath. There was a time, not long ago, when the idea of putting anything in her face would have sounded absurd. But now, after the rejection, the silence, the way Jason Miller's eyes had flicked over her during the interview like she was a painting hung crooked on a wall, now it didn't feel like vanity. It felt like survival. She opened her wallet slowly. The emergency credit card, meant for car trouble or medical expenses, sat tucked behind a gift card she'd never used. Amanda placed the card on the table. Tammy smiled. "You're gonna love the new you." Amanda lay on the treatment chair under the glow of the ring light, the sterile paper crinkling beneath her as she shifted nervously. Tammy snapped on a pair of pink nitrile gloves and lined up a series of small syringes on a nearby tray. The smell of alcohol wipes filled the air. "You're gonna feel a little pinch here," Tammy said, gently pressing a gloved finger along the bridge of Amanda's nose. "Then some pressure. Nothing crazy." Amanda nodded. Her heart pounded. She had read horror stories online. Lumpy results, botched jobs, allergic reactions. But she pushed the thoughts aside. She needed this. This was the fix. The first injection stung, a sharp sting like a wasp bite, followed by a deep, dull pressure that radiated outward. Amanda clenched her fists but didn't move. "You're doing great," Tammy murmured, switching angles. "We're sculpting now."
Just try to relax,
Think
Amanda.
red
We're gonna
carpet
get this
profile.
taken care of.
There were 5 injections in total. 2 along
Does it
the
hurt
nose,
more when I
1
press
on
here?
each cheekbone, and a small touch near the nasolabial folds. Each one brought its own discomfort, but it was over quickly. Less than 30 minutes had passed. Tammy handed her a mirror. Amanda hesitated before taking it. When she looked, the breath caught in her throat. The change was subtle but undeniable. Her nose looked straighter, with a slightly raised bridge that brought balance to her whole face. Her cheeks had a softness to them now, lifting her under eyes and giving her a rested appearance. Her smile lines were less harsh. She looked awake. More than that, she looked visible. "I can't believe it," Amanda whispered, tilting her head. Wow." Tammy grinned. "Told you. No bruising, barely any swelling. Wait till tomorrow. Once it settles, you'll really glow." Amanda sat up slowly, still holding the mirror,
relax,
examining
we're almost
herself
there.
from every angle. She turned left,
Please
then
keep
right.
breathing.
Her heart was fluttering, but not from fear this time. It was something close to exhilaration. At the front desk, she signed a consent form and booked a follow-up in 3 weeks. Tammy gave her a mini ice pack and a list of post-care instructions. No strenuous exercise for 24 hours, no touching the area, no sleeping face down. As Amanda stepped back out into the sunlit parking lot, she felt taller. She walked past the vape shop window and caught her reflection, still her, but better. The woman she'd always felt like inside, now beginning to show on the outside. The next morning, the swelling had already gone down. Her skin looked smooth, her features balanced. She took a selfie by the window in soft morning light and stared at it longer than she intended. She didn't post it, not yet, but she saved it to her favorites. At work, the shift was immediate. Her coworkers paused when she entered the break room. One of the junior sales guys, Jordan, always friendly but never particularly attentive, looked up and smiled longer than usual. "New haircut?" he asked, vaguely gesturing toward her face. "No," Amanda said, sipping her coffee. "Just trying something different. Well, it works." Later that day, her supervisor asked if she'd like to sit in on a client onboarding meeting. Amanda nodded calmly, but inside, her stomach flipped. No one had invited her into meetings in months. She caught her reflection in the tinted windows of the office building as she walked to her car. She was wearing the same black slacks and blue blouse she'd worn a dozen times before. But somehow, today, they looked intentional, like a look. Amanda went home and stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The same mirror that just days ago had shown her someone forgettable now showed someone intriguing. Not beautiful in the traditional sense maybe, but striking. confident. She tried different expressions, a half smile, a look of surprise, angled her face the way Tammy had coached her. Later that night, she scrolled back through her old selfies. There weren't many. Amanda wasn't the type to flood social media, but looking at them now, the differences felt enormous. Her old face had a heaviness to it, a tiredness. This new face, it looked like it belonged to someone going places. She took another selfie, this time with her hair down, lips glossed. She didn't overthink it. She posted it. Within minutes, she had more likes than she'd seen in months. Her inbox pinged with a message from an old college friend she hadn't spoken to in years. "Damn girl, you look amazing. What's your secret?" Amanda replied with a wink emoji. She went to bed that night feeling something unfamiliar, not just confident, powerful. Amanda sat at her desk, eyes locked on her laptop screen as the morning sun filtered through the office blinds. Her heart thudded gently in her chest as she hovered her mouse over the submit application button. It had been 3 weeks since her filler treatment. Every day since, she'd woken up with the same face, but it never stopped thrilling her. This wasn't the same face she had sent in for the interview the first time. That face had been soft, worn, and forgettable. This face made people pause mid-sentence. It drew compliments in coffee shops and second glances from coworkers. It had power. Amanda exhaled slowly and clicked submit. Her application to Miller & Kane was officially sent. This time she didn't second guess it. 2 days later, her phone buzzed during lunch. "Hi, is this Amanda Parker? This is Nicole from Miller & Kane." Mr. Miller was very impressed with your background. He'd love to schedule a second interview with you this Friday, if you're available. Amanda smiled as she held the phone to her ear, pretending to sound calm. "Yes, I'm available, thank you." She ended the call and locked her phone. Her salad sat untouched, her heart beat with adrenaline and anticipation. That night, she prepared meticulously. She chose a pearl white blouse with a soft pleated neckline and paired it with high-waisted black trousers that emphasized her posture. She added delicate gold earrings and swept her hair into a smooth low bun. For makeup, she kept it simple. Flawless skin, a touch of blush, mascara, and a neutral lip. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she saw someone who looked like she belonged in a glass office with panoramic views. Someone who took control of rooms. Someone ready. On Friday morning, Amanda walked through the revolving doors of Miller & Kane, like she'd done it 100 times. The lobby was sleek and modern, marble floors gleaming beneath her black heels. The receptionist barely glanced up before saying, "You can head to conference room C. Mr. Miller is expecting you." She walked past the glass panels, her reflection crisp and confident. This time she didn't feel invisible. Jason Miller stood when she entered. He wore a tailored navy suit, no tie, shirt collar open. His eyes met hers, and this time, they didn't glance away. "Miss Parker," he said with a nod, smiling. "Nice to see you again." "Thank you for the second opportunity," she replied, her voice clear and poised. "I appreciated your time the last round and took the feedback seriously." Jason gestured to the seat across from him. "Let's jump in." The questions were sharper this time, scenario-based high-pressure hypotheticals about managing complex schedules, high-value client meetings, and coordinating travel across multiple time zones. Amanda responded with clarity and calm, even throwing in a few strategic suggestions she'd picked up from her years juggling chaos at her old job. As she spoke, she noticed something new in Jason's expression: engagement. He was leaning forward slightly, watching her closely. At one point, he smiled, almost to himself, and jotted something in his notebook. After 45 minutes, the interview wrapped. Jason stood again, extending a hand. "You're very composed, Miss Parker. Thorough. You've clearly put a lot of thought into how you work." Amanda shook his hand, matching his grip. "That's what I do best, make other people's chaos run smoothly." Jason chuckled. "I could use some of that." They exchanged a final look before she left the room, him holding the door for her, her turning back just slightly to say, "Have a great weekend." She didn't look over her shoulder as she walked out. She didn't have to. Monday morning, the email came. Subject, "Welcome to Miller & Kane. Offer letter attached." Amanda clicked it open with shaking hands. Jason's assistant had sent it personally. The offer was clear: full-time executive assistant to the CEO, salary triple what she was making, benefits, bonus structure, even a signing bonus. She sat back in her chair, exhaling with disbelief. Then a smile spread across her face, slow, satisfied, certain. This was more than just a job. It was proof. Amanda's first day at Miller & Kane began with a view. From her desk just outside the executive office, she could see the Los Angeles skyline stretch out in soft blues and silvers beneath the morning sun. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the top floor like a crown, bathing everything in light. The office felt like another world. Her welcome packet was neatly arranged.
I swear, I
company
couldn't believe
laptop,
he said
branded
that in the
notebook,
meeting.
a sleek gold pen. Nicole,
Oh
the
my
executive
God, and then the
coordinator,
look on
gave her
her
a warm
face, it
tour,
was
introducing her to
priceless.
other staff, marketing managers, finance leads, legal consultants. Everyone looked effortlessly sharp, like they'd stepped out of an ad campaign. But Amanda no longer felt out of place. She had worn a pale cream blouse with a silk scarf at the collar, high-waisted trousers, and nude heels. Her hair was pulled back in a soft twist. She walked like she knew the space belonged to her, too. By the second week, she had memorized Jason's schedule, anticipated his preferences, and streamlined his calendar so well that he stopped double-checking her work. He started relying on her more, reviewing documents before meetings, drafting follow-up emails, even choosing which networking events he should attend. She noticed how his tone shifted when they were alone, less formal, more curious. "You're very efficient," he said one afternoon, as she handed him a folder. "It's rare. Efficiency's just survival in a different suit," she replied lightly. Jason looked up, amused. "You have a sharp way with words." Amanda smiled. "I organize chaos. It gives me material." The elevator ride at 6 p.m. felt different from the one at 9 a.m. in the evenings. The office emptied, but Amanda often stayed, clearing up emails, preparing next-day briefs. Jason stayed too, working later than most. Sometimes he'd walk past her desk on his way out and pause. "You always stay this late?" he asked one Tuesday. "Only when there's work that matters." He nodded. "I like that about you." There were subtle moments. A lingering glance across the conference table, the brush of hands as she handed him a pen. A shared joke no one else in the meeting room understood. Jason was careful, controlled. He never crossed a line. But he didn't have to. By the third Friday, Amanda knew his rhythms. When he liked his coffee, how he read contracts, which clients he found irritating. She knew the things that made him sigh softly under his breath. She noticed that he had a habit of adjusting his cufflinks when he was thinking. She also noticed when his eyes rested a beat too long on her lips during a conversation. That evening, they both worked late again. It had been a brutal week, back-to-back investor meetings, a partner renegotiation, and a media brief. Amanda had just sent off a press release and was shutting down her computer when Jason stepped out of his office. "You were still here," he said, sounding almost relieved. "Just finishing up," she replied, standing and stretching slightly. "Didn't want to leave anything hanging before the weekend." He walked closer, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable. "Come have a drink," he said. She blinked. "Now?" He gestured toward his office. "I keep a bottle of Oban for moments like this. Just one." "You've earned it." Amanda hesitated, but then she followed him in. His office was larger than she expected. Wood paneling, curated art, shelves of architecture and leadership books. The windows looked out over the city, lights beginning to sparkle as the sun dipped low. Jason poured 2 glasses and handed her one. He leaned against his desk while she sat on the leather sofa. They talked about nothing and everything, about burnout, career regrets, the absurdity of real estate marketing. Jason was surprisingly candid, dropping the CEO facade like an old coat. His voice softened, and for the first time, Amanda saw something beneath the polished surface, weariness. He looked at her differently then. Not like an employee, not even like a woman he admired, something else. "You know," he said quietly, "I underestimated you the first time." Amanda tilted her head. "Most people do." There was a long pause. Jason set his glass down and walked over. She looked up at him, and he looked down at her with a mix of caution and intent. "I shouldn't," he said. "You haven't," she replied. But neither of them moved away. He reached out slowly, brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. His hand lingered. Amanda's breath caught, but she didn't pull back. And then he kissed her, soft at first, then deeper. A kiss filled with unspoken things, frustration, hunger, danger. When they broke apart, Amanda looked at him, not shocked, not shaken. "I'm still your assistant," she said. Jason's voice was low. "Not tonight." Amanda's days became a rhythm of power. She arrived at the office each morning in precisely coordinated outfits: cashmere sweaters, silk blouses, tailored pants. Her heels clicked confidently against the polished floors as she passed by coworkers who greeted her with new eyes. There was a sharpness to her now, a glow that hadn't been there before. She wasn't just the assistant to the CEO, she was someone people noticed. Jason, too, was different around her. Their professional dynamic remained intact in public, but behind closed doors, glances lingered, fingers brushed, private meetings stretched into hours. He took her to dinners in the hills, wine bars where nobody asked questions, hotels with private elevators. In the office, Amanda started receiving compliments more frequently. A senior manager once whispered, "You're killing it, Amanda," after she delivered an impeccably timed update during a project meeting. Others sought her input, looped her into strategy emails, copied her on internal memos. She'd become more than just an assistant. She was becoming essential. At first, the power was intoxicating. She smiled easily, moved decisively, spoke with a confidence that made others defer to her. She adjusted meetings based not only on urgency, but on instinct, knowing which client Jason wanted to avoid that day, when to delay a pitch just long enough for a better outcome. She began suggesting changes in wording, repositioning language in proposals. And Jason listened. Sometimes he'd pass along praise from investors or partners. "They like how organized we are now," he said once, running a hand along her waist as she stood beside his desk. "That's you," Amanda glowed under his approval. There were moments she caught herself thinking, "This is who I was always meant to be." She had learned to wield her appearance like armor. The cheekbones, the contoured nose, the polished skin, everything framed her as someone who belonged in the world of influence. But slowly, and almost imperceptibly, the edges of that perfection began to shift. It started one morning as she leaned into the mirror to apply her foundation. The lighting in her bathroom was less forgiving than the office's soft halogens. She noticed a faint unevenness along the side of her nose. Just a shadow, perhaps, but it hadn't been there a week before. Her fingers traced the area. No pain, no swelling, but the shape was subtly different. A small dip, like the filler had settled or shifted slightly. Amanda stepped back, blinking. Maybe she was overthinking. But later that day, while chatting with Nicole in the break room, Nicole glanced at her face and paused for half a second too long. "You look tired today," Nicole said. Amanda's stomach dropped. That night she stared at herself again in the mirror, examining every angle. Was the filler breaking down already? It had only been a few months. Tammy had said 6 to 9 months. Amanda had expected at least a half year of perfection. Now, when she smiled, there was a hint of hollowness under her eyes again. Her nasolabial lines, those grooves from nose to mouth, seemed to be creeping back in. She didn't sleep well that night. The next morning she overcompensated. Heavier concealer, sharper contour, red lipstick instead of nude. At work, no one commented, but that silence, to Amanda, was worse than criticism. She felt exposed. Jason, busy with investor meetings, was distant all day. She watched him laugh with a young woman from the legal department, touching her arm lightly as he told a story. Amanda wasn't jealous, but she noticed. She noticed everything now. That evening she sat in her car in the parking garage, staring into the rearview mirror. The overhead light was harsh, unflattering. The dip in her nose was real. The cheek volume had softened. The magic was fading. She texted Tammy, "Hey, it's Amanda. Can we talk about a touch-up soon?" Tammy replied within minutes, "Of course. Been meaning to check in. Got a great new batch in. You'll love it. Lasts longer too." Amanda stared at the message. Relief flooded her chest, followed by resolve. She wasn't going to let this slip away. Not after everything she'd built. Amanda booked the appointment for a Thursday evening, slipping out of work early under the excuse of a dentist visit. Jason didn't ask questions. He was on back-to-back calls anyway.
We're gonna get this taken
Glowfix still
care
looked
of.
the same on the outside, but inside, the energy
Does
had
it hurt
shifted.
more when I
The
press
lighting
here?
felt dimmer. The front desk was unattended when she walked in. A different receptionist, young, disinterested, finally emerged from the back and told her Tammy would be out shortly. Amanda waited longer than usual. When Tammy appeared, she looked different too, more rushed, distracted. Her ponytail was looser. Her phone kept buzzing in her pocket. "Sorry about the delay," she said, ushering Amanda into the treatment room. "It's been nuts lately. New shipment, new clients, non-stop bruh." Amanda sat down on the chair, smoothing her slacks. Everything okay? Amy waved it off. Totally. Actually, I'm glad you came now. I just got this new filler line. Premium Korean compound, longer lasting, way more structured. It's what the influencers are asking for. You'll love it.
Just
Amanda
relax,
hesitated.
we're almost there.
Is it the same brand as last time?
Please keep
Better,
breathing.
Tammy said quickly. Same category, just upgraded formula. It holds shape longer. Honestly, this stuff is gold. She held up a syringe filled with a clear gel. Amanda didn't recognize the packaging. It looked slightly cloudier than she remembered. Tammy noticed her hesitation. Don't worry, it's totally safe. We've done dozens with this already. Trust me, you'll thank me when you see the definition. Amanda nodded slowly. Okay, just the same areas as before. You got it. The procedure began. The first injection stung more than last time. The pressure was sharper, and Amanda flinched. Whoa, you okay? Tammy asked, pausing. Yeah, Amanda said, exhaling. Just felt stronger than before. Totally normal. This formula is a bit thicker. Settles beautifully, Tammy continued, adding filler along Amanda's nasal bridge, cheekbone edge, and smile lines. Each injection brought a dull ache that lingered longer than she remembered. By the end, her face felt tight, like someone had stretched plastic wrap over her skin. Tammy handed her a mirror. At first glance, Amanda looked flawless. Her nose was more sculpted, the angles sharper. Her cheeks had regained their lift. It's giving Vogue, Tammy said, grinning. You're ready for your close-up. Amanda forced a smile. It looks good. But even as she said it, something felt off. Her nose had a weird heaviness to it, and there was a faint throbbing near the tip. She chalked it up to swelling. Tammy gave her the usual instructions: no makeup for 12 hours, avoid heat, no touching. As Amanda walked back to her car under the fluorescent parking lot lights, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the side window. For the first time, she didn't pause to admire it. That night, she woke up twice. Her nose felt sore, unusually warm. At 3:17 a.m., she got up, walked to the bathroom, and turned on the mirror light. The skin on her nose looked slightly redder than usual. Not alarming. She took a couple of ibuprofen and went back to bed. By morning, everything changed. She awoke to a strange numbness. The right side of her nose felt dead. She touched it and couldn't feel her fingertip. When she got up and looked in the mirror, her breath caught. The skin was swollen, tense and shiny like an overfilled balloon. A bluish-purple hue had begun to spread across the bridge. Small blisters were forming near the nostrils. Oh my God, she whispered. She reached for her phone and immediately called Tammy. No answer. She tried again. Straight to voicemail. Amanda paced the apartment, heart racing. She put ice on it. Googled filler complications. The word vascular occlusion came up again and again. Tissue death, emergency reversal, permanent scarring. She called Tammy again. Still nothing. Texted, Tammy, I think something's wrong. My nose is swelling and turning purple. Call me a sap. Nothing. Amanda grabbed her keys. She no longer cared about discretion. She drove to Glowfix, speeding through yellow lights, weaving through traffic. But when she got there, the door was locked. A sign in the window read, Bar, closed for training. Back Monday, bar. Amanda stood in the parking lot, heart pounding. Her nose was now visibly deformed, the tip swollen and drooping, discoloration spreading. People walking by looked at her with concern. One woman even paused, then quickly looked away. Amanda turned back to her car, slammed the door shut, and stared at herself in the rearview mirror. Her beautiful, sculpted face, the one she had curated so carefully, was melting bruh. Indeed, Tammy had disappeared. Amanda didn't drive to work that morning. She drove to the nearest emergency room in Los Angeles, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned pale. The traffic felt unbearable. Every red light felt like a countdown. Her phone sat on the passenger seat, with Tammy's number still pulled up, the last missed call glaring like an insult. By the time she arrived, her nose looked worse than it had in the apartment mirror. The swelling had spread across the bridge. The purple discoloration was deeper now, almost black at the tip. The blisters near her nostrils had begun to leak clear fluid, and the numbness was expanding outward, like her face was quietly being erased. She ran inside, skipping the front desk line. I need help, she told the triage nurse, voice strained. I got filler injected yesterday, and now my nose is turning purple and I can't feel it. The nurse's expression shifted instantly. Professional calm gave way to alert concern. How long ago was the injection, she asked. About 12 hours, maybe 13. The nurse was already reaching for gloves. Any trouble seeing? Any pain in your eyes? Any headache? No, just my nose. It's numb. It's swollen. Amanda swallowed hard. It looks like it's dying. They brought her into a curtained bay. The overhead lights were bright and unforgiving. A young resident came in first, followed by an ER attending who examined her nose with careful fingers. That's significant discoloration, the attending murmured. Likely vascular compromise. We need plastics or ENT on this. Amanda's stomach flipped. What does that mean? It means blood flow may be blocked, the doctor said, choosing words cautiously. When filler is injected into or compresses a vessel, it can cut off circulation. The tissue can begin to die if we don't reverse it quickly. Amanda felt the room tilt slightly. She grabbed the edge of the bed. But it was just filler, she whispered. It's not supposed to do this, the doctor nodded grimly. Filler is not harmless. Not when it's injected improperly. A nurse began setting up in 4-line. Another took her blood pressure. Her pulse was high. Her hands trembled. Amanda stared at the ceiling, trying to breathe. Her mind kept drifting back to the mirror. The way she'd loved her face. The way she'd believed, wholeheartedly, that this one thing had finally fixed her life. Now it was destroying it. Minutes later, another team arrived. A woman in her late 40s stepped into the bay, wearing dark navy scrubs beneath a white coat. Her hair was pulled back neatly. Her posture was calm, but her eyes were sharp. The kind of eyes that saw things clearly, without panic. I'm Dr. Elena Ruiz, she said. Reconstructive and facial plastics. Amanda tried to sit up, but the nurse gently held her back. Dr. Ruiz leaned closer, studying the pattern of discoloration and the swelling with the careful focus of someone reading a map. This looks like vascular occlusion, Dr. Ruiz said, her voice low but direct. Possibly the lateral nasal artery or branches of the angular artery. The tissue at the tip is already showing signs of ischemia. You came in at the right time, but we're on a narrow window. Amanda's throat tightened. Can you fix it? Dr. Ruiz didn't promise. She never used words like fix in this world. She simply said, we're going to do everything we can to restore blood flow and minimize damage. A nurse handed Dr. Ruiz a syringe and a vial. Dr. Ruiz turned to Amanda. Do you know what was injected? She asked. A hyaluronic acid filler, Amanda said quickly, grabbing onto the word like a lifeline. That's what she said. It's supposed to be dissolvable. Dr. Ruiz's eyes narrowed slightly. Did you see the brand? Lot number? Packaging? Amanda hesitated. No,
I
just
couldn't believe
trusted
he
her.
said that
Dr.
in the
Ruiz
meeting.
nodded once. All right. We'll assume it's hot for
and then
now.
the look
If
on
it's
her
not,
face,
dissolving
it
won't
was
work, but we still have to try. Amanda watched as they prepared the medication. What is that? She asked, voice shaking. Hyaluronidase, Dr. Ruiz said. It's an enzyme that dissolves hyaluronic acid filler. In vascular occlusion cases, we inject it into the affected area to break down the filler and hopefully restore blood flow before the tissue dies. Amanda swallowed hard. Will it hurt? Dr. Ruiz met her eyes. Yes, it can, but tissue loss hurts more. Amanda squeezed her eyes shut as Dr. Ruiz began injecting. The pain was immediate and intense, sharp, burning, deep. It felt like someone was injecting fire under her skin. She gasped, jerking slightly, but the nurse held her shoulder steady. It's okay, the nurse murmured. Breathe. Breathe. Amanda tried. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Dr. Ruiz worked quickly, injecting along the bridge, the tip, the sides, multiple points. Her hands didn't shake. She moved with practiced precision. After a few minutes, Dr. Ruiz stepped back and looked at the tissue again. She pressed gently, checking capillary refill. There was minimal improvement. Amanda opened her eyes, panting. Is it working? Dr. Ruiz's expression remained controlled. Not enough yet. We'll repeat. Sometimes it takes multiple rounds. They did another round. More pain. More tears. Amanda cried openly now, no longer caring about dignity. She felt humiliated in the most primal way, like her body was betraying her in front of strangers. Between rounds, Dr. Ruiz spoke steadily, almost like anchoring Amanda to reality. We're also starting 4 antibiotics, she said. Even if this is purely ischemic, tissue damage can become infected quickly. We'll keep you under close observation. Amanda's voice broke. Am I going to lose my nose? Dr. Ruiz paused, just for half a second. Then she said the truth. If the blood flow doesn't return, parts of the tissue may not survive. We will do everything to preserve as much as possible, But I need you prepared for that outcome. Prepared. Amanda stared at her hands, the same hands that had signed contracts, organized schedules, built a life out of sheer competence. And yet, she had been powerless against a syringe and a lie. Hours passed in cycles of treatment. The swelling remained. The discoloration deepened near the tip. The skin looked fragile, like wet paper. Dr. Ruiz returned after the third round, her jaw set. "We may need surgical intervention," she said. "If the tissue progresses to necrosis, we'll need to remove dead tissue, debridement, to prevent infection from spreading." Amanda's vision blurred. "Surgery?" "Yes," Dr. Ruiz said. "Not cosmetic surgery, emergency surgery." Amanda let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh, a bitter disbelief. "I did this to myself," she whispered. Dr. Ruiz didn't argue. She simply said, "You're here now. That's what matters." Amanda turned her face slightly toward the side mirror of the hospital equipment. The reflection was distorted. Her nose looked swollen, discolored, monstrous compared to the face she'd admired just yesterday. For the first time since she'd stepped into Glowfix, she felt something deeper than fear. He felt shame. OT just for trusting Tammy, not just for chasing beauty, but for the way she'd let her entire worth shrink into the shape of her nose. The nurse adjusted her blanket. The foredrip continued. Dr. Ruiz wrote orders and stepped out, leaving Amanda alone with the hum of machines and the ache in her face. Amanda stared at the ceiling again, the same way she had during the first interview months ago, when she'd felt invisible. Only now she wasn't invisible. Now she was becoming a cautionary tale. Amanda was wheeled into surgery the next morning, the scent of antiseptic and metal sharp in her nose, what was left of her nose. The painkillers dulled her panic but couldn't touch the sense of finality sitting heavy in her chest. Dr. Ruiz had explained everything as gently as possible. The tissue on the tip of her nose had turned necrotic. Blood flow hadn't returned despite multiple hyaluronidase rounds. Now, the dead tissue had to be removed. "It's about preventing infection and saving the surrounding structure," Dr. Ruiz had said, her voice steady. "I'll preserve everything I can." But Amanda knew the subtext. This wasn't cosmetic. This was survival. The lights above the surgical suite blurred as the anesthesiologist adjusted the oxygen mask over her face. "Count backwards from 10 for me," he said. Amanda barely got to 8 before slipping into black. When she woke up, everything was quiet. The light above her hospital bed was soft, filtered by drawn curtains. Her throat was dry. Her arms were sore from 4S. But the most overwhelming sensation was the pressure in her face. A tight, wrapped compression over her nose and upper cheeks. She reached up instinctively, but a nurse appeared instantly. "Don't touch," she said gently. "It's okay. You're out of surgery. Everything went well." Amanda blinked slowly. "How bad?" The nurse hesitated. "Dr. Ruiz will explain in detail when she checks in later, but she said she was able to remove the necrotic tissue and stabilize the site. Stabilize. That word didn't comfort her. Amanda lay still, staring at the ceiling tiles. Everything felt distant, as though the bed she was in wasn't really hers. She didn't know what day it was. Her phone wasn't beside her. The world outside this room felt unreachable. Hours passed, maybe more. A new nurse came in and adjusted her meds. She offered Amanda a small mirror. Amanda shook her head. She wasn't ready. Later that afternoon, her phone was returned to her in a clear plastic bag. It had missed calls, texts, notifications, but none from Jason. Amanda's fingers trembled slightly as she opened the thread. The last message she'd sent him was the night before surgery. "They're taking me in early tomorrow. I'm scared." It had been marked red. No reply. She sent a new one now. "Out of surgery. Can you call when you can?" The message hung in the chat, unsent, then finally marked delivered. Hours passed. Nothing. By evening, Amanda forced herself to look in the mirror. She unwrapped just a corner of the gauze. Her fingers shook. What she saw was not a face. It was a wound. The skin where the tip of her nose had been was raw, red, irregular. The contour of her once sculpted nose had collapsed into a slight dip, the structure compromised. Purple bruising spread under both eyes. The proud lines she had loved to photograph were gone. She rewrapped the gauze with unsteady hands and turned away. That night she didn't cry. She was too hollow. Over the next 2 days, Dr. Ruiz checked on her regularly. "You're healing," she said during one visit. "We'll watch for infection. After that, we can discuss possible reconstruction down the line, if that's something you want." Amanda only nodded. She hadn't thought about want in days. The hospital food arrived like clockwork. Nurses came and went. Time passed in sterile blocks. But Jason never came. She called him once more, straight to voicemail. Her next text was shorter. "Are you avoiding me?" This time, not even a read receipt. On the fifth morning, Nicole from Miller and Kane called. Amanda stared at the screen, then finally answered. "Hi, Amanda," Nicole said cautiously. "Jason asked me to check in. He mentioned you've taken a medical leave." Amanda's mouth went dry. "He asked you to check in?" "Yes, he's in back-to-back meetings this week, but he wanted me to send his best and, let you know that your position is being held, of course. Just take the time you need." Amanda nodded slowly. "Thanks. Also," Nicole continued, a bit more softly, "he mentioned HR would reach out separately about insurance and medical claims if needed." There it was. Amanda ended the call, placed the phone on her lap, and stared out the window of her hospital room. The sky was overcast. She realized in that moment that Jason was never going to visit. He wasn't going to text or call or hold her hand and say, "I'm sorry this happened to you." She had become inconvenient. The polished assistant with the striking face had become a liability, a broken promise, something too complicated to explain to the partners or investors or his wife. Amanda turned away from the window. She thought about the woman she had been just weeks ago, gliding through office corridors in heels, receiving admiring glances, living in that glossy, delicate balance of power and beauty. That woman no longer existed. What remained was this, a face bandaged and burning, a heart quiet with shame, and a future that looked nothing like the one she had built in her head. And yet, somewhere deep beneath the numbness, a different emotion stirred, not vanity, not despair, something older, rougher, anger. The day Amanda was discharged from the hospital, the world outside looked shockingly normal. The sky was clear, birds chirped, cars moved steadily along the boulevard. It felt like mockery. She wore oversized sunglasses and a scarf wrapped around her lower face, not because she thought it fooled anyone, but because she couldn't bear to let strangers see what was underneath. She barely spoke as the nurse wheeled her to the hospital entrance. The Uber driver didn't ask questions, just glanced at her in the rearview once before looking away. Back in her apartment, the silence hit hard. The same walls, the same furniture.
Please keep breathing.
But she wasn't the same person who had left here 2 weeks ago. Her bathroom mirror was still covered with a towel, something her sister had done during Amanda's hospital stay after coming by to pick up clothes. Amanda didn't remove it, not that day, not the next either. Her painkillers sat beside the sink in neat orange bottles. Antibiotics, topical ointments, sterile gauze. A small, sad pharmacy of consequences. The days passed in shadows. She avoided windows during daylight. The light felt accusatory. Her phone lay untouched most of the time, only buzzing occasionally with spam emails or subscription alerts. No calls. No messages from Jason. Nothing from work. She hadn't officially quit, but she knew they'd moved on. The scabs on her nose itched as they dried and pulled, but she didn't touch them. Not out of discipline, out of fear. She was terrified of making it worse. She hadn't taken a proper selfie in over 3 weeks. That thought alone used to feel impossible. Now it didn't matter. She no longer opened Instagram, no longer posted curated photos of her morning matcha, or office outfits or quotes about self-worth. Those things belonged to a life she no longer had. Amanda moved like a ghost in her own apartment. She wore hoodies indoors. She didn't cook. Most days she barely ate. Sleep came in short, shallow fragments. Sometimes she would wake up from dreams where her old face returned, perfect, radiant, only to find her pillow damp with sweat and her reality unchanged. One evening she tried to walk to the corner pharmacy to refill her prescription. But just 3 blocks from home, a child stared at her, openly, innocently, before tugging at his mother's coat and whispering something. The woman glanced at Amanda, gave a tight smile, and hurried away. Amanda turned back immediately. She didn't make it to the pharmacy. She ordered delivery instead and didn't try again. The isolation deepened. She stopped answering her sister's check-ins, stopped replying to friends who texted with cheerful concern, "Just thinking of you, hope you're resting well." They didn't understand. No one did. On the 7th night after returning home, Amanda sat alone in the dim kitchen with a cup of untouched tea. The microwave clock glowed 2:11 a.m. She hadn't changed clothes in 2 days. Her gauze was due for a change, but she couldn't bring herself to look. Then, her laptop pinged. She ignored it at first. Just another promo, she thought. But the subject line caught her eye. Support group invitation, Dr. Elena Ruiz. She blinked. With hesitation, Amanda opened the email. Subject, support, and recovery program. Invitation to join. From e.ruiz@ucl-aplastics.or. GBR. Oh, Amanda Parker bruh. I, Amanda bruh, hope you're continuing to heal. I know this phase is one of the most difficult, not just physically but emotionally and socially. Wanted to personally invite you to join a small support group we've built for patients recovering from medical complications related to cosmetic procedures. Some are post-surgical cases, some like yours involved dermal filler injuries. All of them understand what it feels like to carry trauma, both visible and invisible. Meet virtually once a week, in a secure, private setting. No pressure to speak until you're ready. Sometimes it helps just to listen. Br. F. This interests you, reply to this email. I'll send the next meeting link. Armley Bar. R. Elena Ruiz Bar. Manda stared at the screen. Bar. Our first instinct was to close the laptop. She wasn't ready. She wasn't the kind of person who joined support groups. The word itself sounded weak to her, like something whispered in back rooms by broken people. But wasn't she broken now? She sat there, unmoving, rereading the email over and over. The part that struck her wasn't support or healing. It was this: all of them understand what it feels like to carry trauma, both visible and invisible. She leaned back in the chair. Nobody had said it that plainly before. Amanda looked down at her hands, still bandaged where the four had been. The skin underneath was pale and bruised, but healing. Maybe the face would never be the same. But maybe something else could be rebuilt. She didn't respond right away, but she left the laptop open, and for the first time in weeks she didn't feel entirely alone. Amanda logged into the virtual meeting room 5 minutes early. The Zoom screen displayed a black square with the words waiting for the host to start this meeting. Her heart pounded harder than she'd expected. It wasn't stage fright. It was something deeper. A fear of being seen, even online. She wore a hoodie with the hood pulled up, and though the screen was blank, she found herself adjusting the angle of her webcam to cut off most of her face. Just her eyes, nothing below. A soft chime sounded as the meeting started. One by one, muted rectangles of other participants began to appear. Some had cameras on, some didn't. Then, Dr. Ruiz's calm, grounded face filled the center window. "Hi everyone," she said warmly. "It's good to see you all again, and to welcome some new faces tonight. As always, I want to start by reminding you, this is a confidential space. There is no judgment here. You share only what you want. When you're ready, listening is just as powerful as speaking." Amanda took a slow breath. More screens flickered on. There was a woman with only half her face visible, clearly intentional. A man in his 30s with a faint scar under one eye. Another woman wore heavy glasses and had a tremor in her voice when she said her name, Diane. They started with check-ins. Diane spoke first. "I'm still waiting for the skin graft to take. It's healing, but slowly. Some days I look in the mirror and don't recognize myself. That's the hardest part. Not the pain, just the feeling that I disappeared." A man named Jules shared next. "I went outside yesterday without makeup for the first time since my procedure. A kid at the grocery store stared at my lip. The scar pulls when I talk, so I sound funny. But I still smiled at him. That felt big." There were nods, affirming hums. Dr. Ruiz gently prompted others. No one forced anything. Amanda remained silent. She wanted to disappear into the screen, to be a passive observer. But at the same time, her throat burned with recognition. These people, so different in background, in age, in injury, all felt like mirrors, fragments of herself scattered across their words. Dr. Ruiz spoke again. "I want to share a story tonight," she said, "about a former patient of mine, someone I treated 5 years ago. Her name was Ellen." Amanda's eyes flicked toward the screen, alert. "Ellen was a middle school teacher," Dr. Ruiz continued. "She had saved up for years to get a rhinoplasty. Nothing major. She wanted to soften a hump in her nose, something kids had teased her about since childhood. She found a discount clinic online. They didn't use anesthesia properly. She got an infection, and by the time she reached our team, The
I
damage was
swear I
severe.
couldn't believe
We
he
did
said
what we
that in the
could.
meeting.
There was a pause. She lost most of the
Oh my
cartilage
God, and
structure
then
in
the
her
look
nose.
on her
It
face,
collapsed
it was
inward.
priceless.
We were able to rebuild some, but the scarring remained. Her face changed dramatically. She was brave and quiet, very quiet. For a long time she stopped teaching. The group sat in silence. Amanda's mind was racing. The name Ellen, the story. Something about it felt familiar. Dr. Ruiz's voice softened. What I remember most wasn't the surgery. It was what she told me in her final visit. She said, "I didn't want to be beautiful. I just wanted to be left alone." Amanda's breath caught. It hit her like a punch to the stomach. Ellen, she remembered. 3 years ago, on a rainy Wednesday, she'd stood in line at a coffee shop behind a woman with a sunken, uneven nose. Amanda had been scrolling Instagram at the time, admiring influencers. She'd nudged her coworker and whispered, "Yikes. Some people should just accept how they look. Surgery doesn't fix everything." They both laughed. Now Amanda blinked against the heat in her eyes. She hadn't known that woman's story, hadn't even tried. Dr. Ruiz looked into the camera. Sometimes the hardest part of healing is forgiving how the world treated you when you were hurt, but sometimes, even harder, is forgiving who you were before you got hurt. Amanda felt like Dr. Ruiz was speaking directly to her. She reached for her mug with trembling fingers. Her reflection in the dark screen looked fragile. Dr. Ruiz invited anyone to share. Silence followed, and then, almost without planning it, Amanda clicked her microphone on. Her voice, when it came out, was low and uneven. "I'm Amanda," she said. A few squares nodded, welcoming her quietly. She hesitated. I haven't left my apartment in almost 10 days. Not really. Just once, and I ran home because a kid stared at me." She laughed, brittle. "I used to care a lot about how I looked. I worked in a corporate office, surrounded by beautiful people. And I always thought, if I could just change this one thing, I'd finally feel real, like I belonged." She paused. "I got filler, and for a while it worked. I felt powerful, not just seen, but wanted. People treated me differently. Doors opened. I thought I had finally made it." Amanda swallowed. Then it all unraveled. Bad batch, bad technique, whatever it was. My face started dying, literally dying. A few others looked down, visibly moved. I went from someone people flirted with to someone strangers avoid eye contact with. And the worst part? Her voice cracked. I don't even blame them. I did the same. I judged. I mocked. She thought of Ellen. "I was cruel to someone once," Amanda said. "Someone whose story I didn't know. I think about her a lot now." She exhaled, long and heavy. "I don't know what healing looks like yet, but tonight, this is the first time I haven't felt like a monster in weeks." The group was silent, not because of discomfort, but because of understanding. Dr. Ruiz smiled gently. "Thank you, Amanda. That was honest, brave, and deeply human." Amanda clicked her mic off, but something inside her had shifted. She had spoken, she had been heard, and for the first time since the nightmare began, Amanda didn't feel like she had to wear a mask, even on camera. The morning light poured through the window in quiet gold, touching the corners of Amanda's apartment like an old friend returning after a long absence. It had been exactly 26 days since she'd last walked outside without a scarf pulled tightly around her face. Today, she stood at the threshold of her front door, hand on the knob, heart thumping. She had spent the past week rebuilding rituals, boiling water for tea, journaling her emotions, playing soft music in the evenings. Tiny, almost imperceptible habits that slowly anchored her back to life. And now, this, her first walk in daylight, she didn't dress up. Just a gray hoodie, a soft beanie pulled low, sunglasses resting gently on the bridge of her healing nose. The skin was still discolored, and the bridge slightly uneven, but the swelling had gone down. The rawness had given way to new pink tissue. It wasn't pretty, but it wasn't dying anymore. She stepped out onto the sidewalk and inhaled deeply. The air smelled like damp concrete, jasmine bushes in early winter. Familiar, grounding. Amanda walked slowly, each step deliberate. She kept her gaze forward, avoiding windows and mirrors. Her heart raced at the sound of footsteps or passing cars, but no one stared, no one screamed. The world, it seemed, had more important things to do than inspect a woman's face. At the corner, she crossed into the park. It wasn't crowded, just a few early risers with dogs, and an elderly couple doing slow Tai Chi beneath the trees. Amanda followed the paved path that curved around the duck pond. Every now and then she reached up and tugged at her hoodie, checking that it still covered enough. She didn't feel brave, she just felt tired of hiding. She sat on a bench near the playground. Her hands rested in her lap. Sunlight filtered through the branches overhead, casting soft shadows across the pavement. And then, it happened. A little boy zipped by on a green scooter, maybe 5 or 6 years old. As he passed in front of her, his eyes met hers. For a brief second, Amanda braced for the flinch, the stare, the whisper to his mother. But instead, he smiled, wide, pure, completely unfiltered. "Hi," he chirped, then rode on, the wheels of his scooter humming away down the path. Amanda blinked. It was such a small moment, but it cracked something open. She turned her head, watching him until he disappeared behind a row of trees. No fear, no confusion in his eyes, just a child's instinctive warmth. Her eyes filled with tears, quiet, trembling ones. She sat very still, letting them fall. She didn't cry from sadness, not entirely. It was something else, something closer to grief giving way to release. She had spent so many weeks expecting rejection that the simplicity of a child's smile felt revolutionary. That afternoon, she returned home and didn't pull the towel back over the bathroom mirror. She didn't look right away, but she didn't hide it either. Instead, she opened her notebook and wrote, "Someone smiled at me today. Not for how I looked, just because I existed. I think that's the first time I've felt real since everything happened." She closed the journal and sat on her couch, sunlight dancing across the floorboards. For the first time, the silence in her apartment didn't feel punishing. It felt restorative. That evening, she prepared a small meal. Nothing fancy, just roasted vegetables and rice. The act of chopping, stirring, plating, it felt like reclaiming something. After dinner, she sat in front of her vanity. The towel still hung there, folded to the side. She stared at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, Amanda reached up and pulled it away. Her reflection stared back. The nose was uneven. The scar near her right nostril was still healing. Her skin looked thinner in places. This wasn't the face she had once cultivated with such precision, but it was hers. Amanda studied herself, not with criticism, not with mourning, but with something closer to neutrality. Maybe even kindness. "I survived," she whispered. She traced the scar with her fingertip, not out of vanity, but as acknowledgement. Every millimeter of that line had cost her something: pain, pride, identity, but it had also brought her here, to this moment, to herself. She didn't smile, but she didn't look away, and that, for now, was enough. The following Tuesday evening, Amanda logged into the support group meeting with her camera on and her face fully visible. There was no hoodie this time, no awkward camera angles. The lighting in her apartment was soft, but enough to show the contours of her healing nose. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't symmetrical, but it was hers, and she no longer felt the need to hide it. Dr. Ruiz greeted her with a quiet smile as the meeting began. Amanda noticed a few familiar faces from the previous week: Diane, Jules, and 2 newer attendees who still had their cameras off. She remembered what that had felt like: the need for digital invisibility, the fear of being perceived. The session started with a round of check-ins, and when it was Amanda's turn, she didn't hesitate. "I went for a walk 2 days ago," she said. There were soft smiles across the screen, and it wasn't night, it wasn't hiding. "I just walked, like a normal person. Hoodie, sunglasses, but not fear.
Just try to relax,
not
Amanda.
completely."
We're gonna get this taken
Jules
care
nodded.
of.
"That's big," Amanda nodded back. "Yeah."
Does it hurt more
She
when
took
I
a
press
breath,
here?
then continued. "I sat on a bench. I wasn't doing anything, just existing. And this little boy came by on a scooter, looked right at me and smiled. The room fell quiet, listening. He didn't flinch. He didn't look confused. He just smiled like I was someone worth smiling at. I think that's the first time since the hospital that I felt like a person again." Her voice broke slightly at the end, but she didn't apologize for it. Diane's voice came softly. "That's beautiful." Amanda smiled gently. "It was just a kid, but it changed something in me." Dr. Ruiz leaned forward slightly, hands folded. "That moment you described," she said, "is more powerful than most people realize, because it wasn't about the child, it was about you. The fact that you were there, open to it,
Just
present."
relax, we're almost
Amanda
there.
swallowed. "It made me
Please
realize
keep
I've been
breathing.
spending so much time trying to get back to who I was, but maybe that version of me wasn't even whole to begin with. Maybe this version, the one that broke and had to rebuild, is more real. There was a stillness in the digital room, the kind that only comes when something deeply true has been said. Dr. Ruiz smiled. Amanda, I was actually going to email you tomorrow, but now feels like the right time. Amanda tilted her head slightly. Oh, we're holding a small, internal workshop next month for new patients entering recovery, those just starting their journey after facial trauma or cosmetic complications. We do it every quarter. Usually I speak, along with another member of our surgical team, but we've found it makes a deeper impact when someone who's walked that path speaks too. Amanda felt her heart skip. You want me to speak? Dr. Ruiz nodded. Only if you feel ready. No pressure. But hearing you today, I think your story would mean something to others. You've come further than you realize. Amanda looked away from the screen for a moment. The idea of standing in front of people, even virtually, and sharing this wound, this journey, felt terrifying. And yet, something inside her stirred. A question, quiet but persistent. What if your pain has purpose? She looked back at Dr. Ruiz. I'll think about it. That's all I ask. The rest of the meeting continued. Stories were shared, emotions spilled, held carefully by the others. Amanda found herself responding, nodding, even encouraging a new member who was too nervous to speak, and when the session ended, she stayed a moment longer in the quiet. The screen faded to black. Amanda sat at her desk, staring at her own reflection in the monitor, just a faint ghost now that the camera had turned off. But still there, still her. Later that night, she opened a new document on her laptop. At the top, she typed, "What I thought beauty would give me, and what it took to find myself instead." She didn't know if this would become the talk. She didn't know if she would ever be healed. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid of being seen. She was ready to be heard. The night before the workshop, Amanda couldn't sleep. She lay on her side, eyes wide open in the dim glow of the streetlight leaking through her blinds. Her laptop sat on the nightstand, her notes open in a file she'd read through at least a dozen times. Her story, polished, practiced, but still raw in the places that mattered. She had printed out a copy too, just in case. The title stared up at her from the page, "What I Thought Beauty Would Give Me, and What It Took to Find Myself Instead." She had written it in pieces over the past week, during long afternoons with chamomile tea and music humming low in the background. It wasn't dramatic or poetic, it was honest. And that, she had decided, would have to be enough. But now, on the edge of doing something she never imagined she would, Amanda was gripped by a fear she hadn't felt in months. The same fear she once felt when stepping into job interviews, when removing bandages for the first time, when catching her reflection unexpectedly. Tomorrow, they would see her, really see her. She wasn't afraid of the scars. She was afraid of what they might reflect back. The next morning, she arrived early at the small conference room inside the outpatient wing of the hospital. Dr. Ruiz greeted her with a warm hug and a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to be perfect," she whispered. "Just be real." Amanda nodded. The room was intimate, about 15 chairs set in loose rows, a small table with water and tissues at the side. The attendees filed in slowly. Some walked with careful steps. Others had visible bandages across their cheeks, chins, or foreheads. Most looked down as they entered, avoiding mirrors or each other's eyes. Amanda recognized herself in every one of them. She sat near the front, hands folded tightly in her lap, listening as Dr. Ruiz opened the session. "Welcome, everyone. Some of you are just beginning this journey. Some are in the middle of it. All of you are brave for showing up today." Her voice was steady, warm, practiced. "Before we begin, I want to introduce someone who's kindly agreed to speak with us. Amanda has lived through what many of you are facing. She's not here as a doctor, or a nurse, or even as a mentor. She's just human, and I think her story might resonate." Amanda stood slowly. Her legs felt like paper. She walked to the small podium at the front of the room. It wasn't high, there was no spotlight. Just the quiet, expectant gaze of people who knew pain, really knew it. She cleared her throat, held the paper lightly in her hand, and began. "My name is Amanda Parker. A year ago, I thought I had my life figured out. I was working hard, I was chasing a job promotion, and I believed, really believed, that if I could just look a little more polished, a little more beautiful, then maybe the rest of my life would fall into place." A few nods in the crowd, recognition, understanding. "I went to a small cosmetic clinic. It was cheap, it wasn't safe. but I didn't ask questions, because I didn't want to seem poor or desperate or insecure. I just wanted results. Her voice wavered, but she kept going. For a few months it worked. My face looked sharper. People noticed me more. I got compliments. I got a job offer. I even thought I found love. Amanda's fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the podium. But 6 months in, my face started to change. The filler moved. My nose turned dark. I felt the skin swell and lose sensation. I called the clinic. No one answered. I ended up in the ER, then surgery, then weeks of healing, hiding, trying not to hate the mirror. A few people shifted in their seats. Amanda softened her voice. There were days I didn't speak to anyone. I thought my life was over, that I would never be treated the same again. She took a breath, steadied herself. But then I joined a group like this. Just listened at first. Slowly I started sharing. And one day something happened. A child, just a stranger on a scooter, looked at me, smiled, and said hi like I was anyone else. Her lips curved just slightly. That moment reminded me, my value wasn't in how symmetrical my nose was, or how smooth my skin looked. My value was in how I showed up for myself, even when I didn't want to be seen. She scanned the room. I still have bad days. I still get looks. But I also have good days, and today is one of them, because I get to stand here and remind you that your pain doesn't erase your worth. Your scars don't cancel your beauty. They are part of your truth, and that truth deserves to be seen. Silence followed. Not the kind that meant discomfort, but the kind that settles in after something sacred has been spoken aloud. A woman in the back wiped her eyes. A man near the front shifted forward, hands unclenched in his lap. Amanda looked at Dr. Ruiz, who smiled at her with quiet pride. Amanda stepped down from the podium and returned to her seat. Her heart was racing, but it was different this time. This wasn't anxiety. It was something closer to aliveness. She had been seen, not for what had once made her desirable, but for what made her human. And she had survived it. After the workshop ended, the room slowly emptied. Some people lingered, collecting papers and water bottles. Others offering brief thank yous to Dr. Ruiz or the staff on hand. Amanda remained seated, unsure of what to do with the emotional weight in her chest, something between release and awe. She had spoken, she had been heard, and it had mattered. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Hi, Amanda?" Amanda turned and saw a young woman standing just a few feet away. Early 20s maybe, a baseball cap low over her forehead, the brim casting a shadow that only partly concealed a healing scar down her left cheek. Her hands fidgeted at her sides. "Yes," Amanda replied gently. "I just wanted to say..." The girl hesitated, then took a breath. "Thank you. For what you said. Her voice cracked. "I almost didn't come today. I didn't think I could handle hearing another person tell me it gets better when they didn't really know."
And then the look on
Amanda
her
gave her
face,
full
it was
attention.
priceless.
"But then you said that thing about not needing to go back to who you were, about becoming someone more." The girl's eyes welled up. "I needed that. More than I realized." Amanda stood slowly and offered a soft smile. "What's your name?" "Rachel." Amanda nodded. "Rachel, you're already braver than most people will ever be." The girl's chin trembled. "I haven't looked at myself in a mirror in 3 weeks." Amanda's heart clenched. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small card. One Dr. Ruiz had printed with Amanda's name and email in case any participants wanted to connect privately. "Take this," Amanda said. "Reach out whenever. I mean it." Rachel accepted the card with both hands, as if it were something delicate and sacred. "Thank you," she whispered. They didn't hug, too much emotion, too public. But there was a connection in that moment that neither of them would forget. Rachel left. Amanda stood for another few minutes, watching the now empty chairs, the quiet aftermath of something that had felt much bigger than she anticipated. That evening, back home, Amanda made herself tea. Chamomile again, though this time it felt less like a sedative and more like a ritual of warmth. She sat at her desk with her laptop and opened her inbox. There was already a message from Dr. Ruiz. Subject line: "You were extraordinary." Amanda smiled but didn't open it yet. Instead, she clicked New Email and began to type to e.ruiz@ucl-aplastics.orgbr. Object: "Thank you, Burr. I, Dr. Ruiz Burr. Don't even know where to begin, Dr. Burr." O-Day felt like more than a talk. It felt like a turning point. I've shared my story before in group, but standing in front of others, especially those at the beginning of this painful road, was terrifying. And Sacred Bar, didn't know if my words would land. But then Rachel came up to me, and I realized, even if I helped just one person feel less alone, it was worth every scar, every silent night, every step back toward the light. Thank you for seeing something in me when I couldn't see it in myself. Burr, don't think I'm healed. I don't know if I ever will be, completely. But I no longer feel broken, and that, I think, is a kind of healing in itself. Ith gratitude. Bar. Mandabra. Ba. He clicked send bar. Quiet peace settled over her shoulders. The kind that didn't need a soundtrack or applause, just stillness. Just breath. Later that night, Amanda stood in front of her bathroom mirror, not because she was checking for symmetry, not because she wanted to trace the scars or measure improvement, she just looked. The woman who stared back at her was familiar and foreign all at once, a little older, a little softer around the eyes, wiser maybe. Her nose would never be the same. Her skin still carried faint lines of trauma, but her eyes were clear. Amanda leaned in slightly, not to inspect, to acknowledge. She placed a hand over her heart, closed her eyes and whispered, "Thank you for surviving." When she opened her eyes again, the reflection remained, flawed, unfinished, human, and beautiful. Not because of what was fixed, but because of what had been faced. 1 year later, the world had kept spinning. People rushed through subway stations, posted filtered selfies, stood in line at coffee shops, and moved through life in that unrelenting, ordinary way. Amanda Parker no longer felt like a ghost watching from the sidelines. She had stepped back into the stream, still cautious, still healing, but no longer invisible. The community center on 3rd and Rose Avenue buzzed quietly with soft conversation and the scent of brewed tea. Every second Thursday of the month, the Second Skin Support Circle gathered here, an intimate group of those recovering from cosmetic trauma, surgical mishaps, or deep battles with self-image. Amanda stood near the back table, arranging folders. She didn't speak first anymore. That job belonged to Rachel now. The same Rachel who 1 year ago couldn't look in the mirror. Today, she wore a soft blue blouse, her hair tucked behind her ears, and a light scar down her cheek, a pale reminder of a once debilitating fear. But she stood tall. "Tonight," Rachel said to the group, "we don't need to talk about pain, unless you want to. Tonight, we can talk about what came after the pain, the weird joy of discovering your face again, the way people surprise you, the peace of no longer performing." Amanda watched with pride, remembering her own first time standing in that space. Later, after the session, Rachel walked over with 2 mugs of tea. "Did I talk too much?" she asked, half playful. "You talked perfectly," Amanda said, smiling. Rachel leaned against the table. "I read your article again this morning." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "The scar one?" "Yeah. Scars are stories too. Still makes me cry." Amanda gave a modest shrug. "I still can't believe they published it. But they had." The essay had appeared 3 months earlier in The Atlantic, in their Modern Identity section. It had been shared over 20,000 times, featured in wellness blogs, and quoted by several therapists Amanda had never met. In it, she wrote, "We all carry the aftermath of trying to be lovable. Some carry it in their memories. Some, like me, wear it on their faces. I used to think my scars ruined me. Now I know. They rewrote me. And this version? She's honest. She's free. She's still here." Amanda had spent hours replying to emails from strangers, some with disfigurements, others just tired of chasing perfection. She never claimed to be a guru, just a woman who had survived her own reflection. That night, Amanda walked home through the quiet streets of Venice. The city had a way of glowing at night, soft and orange, like a candle that never quite burned out. She passed the window of a boutique and, without planning it, stopped. In the reflection, she saw herself, no filter, no fear. Just Amanda. The line of her nose was no longer sharp. There was a visible dip where tissue had been removed. A faint line curved near her left nostril, almost like a shadow that refused to fade. But her posture, her eyes, held something else. Groundedness, presence. She looked at her reflection and thought, "I know you." She walked the rest of the way home feeling unhurried. Inside her apartment, she placed her keys on the hook, took off her shoes and padded into the kitchen. She didn't turn on music. The silence felt companionable now. She poured a glass of water, sat at her desk, and opened her laptop. Another message waited in her inbox. This one from a woman named Margot, age 61, from Wisconsin. Amanda, I read your piece twice. I've spent my whole life avoiding cameras, hating my jawline. I got botched in a neck lift 10 years ago and haven't left my house without a scarf since, but you made me think maybe, just maybe, my story isn't over. Amanda closed her eyes. A quiet tear rolled down her cheek, not from pain but from recognition. So many lives tangled up in this need to be beautiful. So many waking up, finally, to something deeper. She stood and walked to the bathroom mirror one last time before bed. There she was. No makeup, no lighting tricks, just the woman who had walked through hell with open eyes and come out holding a lantern. She leaned closer, not to inspect, not to critique, just to say goodnight, and maybe, just maybe, to say I love you too.